just say something just so I can get your mic.
The W Tucker Show.
There we go. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so this is the W Tucker Show, and we've started streaming live, and we've got Penny Gilden-Yunker, and her expertise is staffing and hiring and firing and HR and all that kind of stuff related to, and that's what her company does. Your company hires people, places people, all that sort of stuff. And we were just talking, and we thought, oh, we just need to start because the conversation was exactly what we wanted to talk about. And that's originally, when I talked to Penny, the show was called Healthy and Fit After 40. So it's not anymore because we're gearing ourselves to kind of 20 to 100 instead of 40 to 100. And so, and Penny and I originally talked about the challenges of folks who are looking for jobs after they turn 40, and the older you get, the more challenging it is, I'm assuming.
Well, yes and no.
Oh, okay.
Because
good answer.
Yeah, many of the customers that come to us, or the clients that come to us, they're really looking for people to hit the ground running. So they don't want anybody learning on the job. They want somebody that knows the job.
Okay.
So, for example, if they need somebody in accounting, or somebody with international experience in accounting, or an AR or AP, they're experts.
What's AR and AP?
It would be accounts receivable, accounts payable.
Okay.
So the expectation from the client is that we're going to identify the person that knows exactly what their job description is. So they look for us to present people to hit the ground running. They're not looking for a learning curve.
So that's not a 20-year-old.
Correct. They're looking for people with experience that can walk into a situation where they need somebody now.
Right.
They don't need somebody to learn. They don't want somebody learning on the job. They want somebody to know the job. Maybe it's a different company, but the processes are the same.
Right. So that person, if they're 50, that's okay.
You can be
60?
You can.
Okay.
Can. Because, again,
that's not a deterrent to a company in most cases.
In many cases, it's not because, again, they need somebody to come in now.
Right.
So it may not be the long-term opportunity, but it may be a long contract. It may be to get the department up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great opportunity for someone that is seasoned.
And has that experience.
And has the experience. That's what the company is looking for.
Okay. So what's interesting is my other business, which not everybody knows, is health insurance. So what I find is, like, for instance, last week, I've had a woman who was 59, and she worked for a huge corporation, laid her off, and gave her 18 months of a package, a severance package, which is very generous, I would say. They didn't give her health insurance. And so, but she's been out of a job for 18 months. Out of a job for 18 months. So she's been out of work a long time. Maybe I need to refer her to you.
Well, it's interesting.
And I assumed it was because of her age.
Well, it's interesting, and this is what I tell a number of people that are, again, more seasoned. They are in that age bracket, and they have now just lost their jobs, which is what this woman is describing. So the question is, to me, what I ask them is, do you need to continue in a career, or do you need another job? And that's really something they have to think about, because at this point you've had a heck of a career, right?
Well, she'd worked for 28 years, yeah. So she obviously had been doing the same thing for 20, or maybe, I'm assuming, the same thing.
Okay, so she's been doing whatever for 28 years. So
right.
Now the point, the real conversation is to really assess where you are. Do you need to make as much money?
Right.
Do you want that same responsibility? Would you rather have a job versus a career? And if that's the answer, then you're looking for an opportunity to work, not necessarily a career. It's very different.
It's very different because somebody who's looking for a career when they're 60 may be having to learn new things. But if you're looking for a job, that might be much easier. That's what you're saying.
That is correct. And there's a lot of contract opportunities out there where companies just need your expertise for the short term.
So on a contract basis, as you said.
And usually they make more money.
Right, right.
So that's a different opportunity.
Different.
But I think people have to pretty much assess financially where they are and where they can be or need to be. Maybe a very different answer than it was when they started in that job 20, 25 years ago.
Exactly, exactly.
Gives them more latitude.
And so what kind of, I never asked her, but one of the questions I thought was, are they downsizing her partly because of her age? Could that be?
Well,
Or they're just,
you just don't
you
know.
never know. I
just
didn't.
don't
I
know.
didn't ask her, and she probably doesn't know either. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but there's some companies that, they look at salary levels, they look at,
right, and they can maybe get the same thing with a 25-year-old
yeah, and that's unfortunate, but
for
it
a,
happens.
for a lot
Yeah.
less money. Right, right.
Or
right.
they just may have been reorganizing.
Right, they may have been, a company that was bought, and they're reorganizing, merging, and doing all that sort of stuff too.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yep.
that can definitely. So Penny and I originally talked about just exactly what we're talking about now, which is kind of those challenges of. So let's talk a little bit more about that before we kind of talk about the other end of the spectrum.
Challenges as far as
Over 40.
over 40. Well, I think one of the biggest challenges when people are over 40 is they think that nobody's going to want to hire them. And, it becomes more difficult as you get older. But I said earlier that when companies come to us, and I'm with Express Employment, we are a staffing company.
Right.
When companies come to us, they are looking for that person to hit the ground running. They're not looking for any kind of learning curve, so to speak.
Right.
Did we talk about this off air, correct?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
But that's, yeah, so let's talk about that more.
Okay.
Yeah, because you are right. I think a lot of people who are 50 and 55 and think they're never going to get hired. I think that is and you're saying that's a fallacy.
I completely say that's a fallacy because there are so many positions out there where the most important thing is that people show up every day
Right.
and give it a full day's work.
Right.
That is probably the biggest challenge we hear from employers today.
Wow.
So if you're looking for a customer service opportunity and a receptionist, whatever the case may be, the biggest thing we hear from employers is so-and-so accepted the job, but they never came back.
Now that's shocking, isn't it?
I'm not jaded, so I'm still shocked by it. But I can tell you.
So you've been doing this a while.
I have.
Okay.
I have.
So you've seen the progression of what's happening in the marketplace over several more years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, first of all, the unemployment rate in this area, in particular in the DFW area, it's about 3.2%. Much lower than the national average, not much lower, but lower than the national average. So there are many, many, many companies looking for all of those great people within this area. So the jobs are there.
What's the unemployment rate?
It's about 3.2% or lower in this area.
So that's shockingly low, right?
Very low,
Yeah.
very low.
And so the problem for you is not necessarily finding jobs, but finding people to put in those jobs.
Yes, that's the big challenge, is finding really good people for those positions.
So has that been going on for a while?
I would say so. I would say it's been for the last year and a half or so. We have situations that happens all the time, and again, I'm not jaded by it.
Right.
But somebody will accept a position, they'll call the recruiter the night before, they'll be conversing, yes, I'll be there at 7 a.m., I'm ready to go, I'm excited, and son of a gun, they don't show up.
So what is that? Why is that? What has happened in that instant? Does that happen often, or does that happen just rarely?
No, it's
It
fairly,
happens often.
Yep, it's fairly often that it happens. We don't really know. Maybe it's a transportation issue. Maybe they got something. Maybe a job came through that they had interviewed for 2 weeks before,
And they got it that
Yeah.
that day or something.
Yeah.
So but that doesn't sound like, 20 years ago when I was in the workforce, that doesn't, of course I never really was. I was always an entrepreneur. So, but I did start in an architecture firm and as just a draftsman, just drawing toilet details, really. And there was none of that I remember.
Well, the days of people staying in jobs for 20, 25, 30 years, those days are over.
Are over.
Young people today will have no less than maybe 6 different jobs within their lifetime, and it's probably going to be more.
Yeah.
And we just find that young people have a very different look at work.
Now, when we're talking about young people, we're talking 20 to 35. Is that what we're talking about?
Well,
when does that?
Young people start. Let's say that they're in their early 20s.
Okay.
And this happens very, very often too. It's just like, I don't like the job. And maybe it's maybe it's paying 50, 60K. It doesn't have to be an hourly person by any means. Somebody will go, I just don't like the job. I don't want to go back.
Wow.
Like, whoa, wait a minute, let's talk about it. Nope, I'll get something else.
So do they call you? Are you kind of the contact between? No. Okay.
They will speak directly with their recruiter.
Okay.
And they'll possibly speak with us before they'll speak with the company that they're working. But we can hear that, from a number of different people that they're just not happy. They're just going to go elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And they do.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be honest, in a market like this, that's probably not a big risk, right?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
You still have a number of employers that do not like to see job hoppers.
Right.
They are going to say, this person has great skills, but I see that they were only in this position for a year, only in this position for a year and a half. So what is going on?
So a year is a short time to be in a job.
Very short time.
Very short time. Right. So I remember the same thing when I worked for some corporations back in the day, and I do remember looking at my resume and thinking, oh my gosh, I was only in that job 3 years, and that was even a negative back then. 3 years was a negative, I think.
Well, I think that
it's not nowadays, though, is it?
Not as much, because the expectations have changed as the market has changed for associates. I mean, hiring managers all through the area realize how challenging things are, and we work hand in hand. So they'll be working with us, but they're working simultaneously to find good people. But every challenge that's occurring for us is also occurring for them. We'll have situations where interviews are set up. People don't show up for the interviews. Happens to us, happens to the employers.
So is that a more common occurrence now than it was 5 years ago?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So is 5 years a change in the marketplace? Is it that recently that the marketplace has changed?
Oh yeah, even more recently than that. I mean, you've got some major players in our area. You've got Amazon, which had that nationwide job fair with 6 different cities.
Now I didn't know about that. Tell me about that.
They're hiring like thousands and thousands of people in each market, and there was a big job fair, I believe. Might have been even on Monday. So their minimum wage at Amazon is $15 an hour, and then of course they have jobs for the whole spectrum. I mean, W, you've heard me say this, like, we staff from the suite to the street.
Right.
And most companies, many companies do, so the wages are going to reflect that. But, everybody, it's kind of like the grass is always greener. I mean, that adage is still the same.
Right.
People think, well, I'm going to leave this job to get that job, but sometimes longevity is better.
Right. So the grass is always greener.
I don't necessarily.
I mean, I'm just saying that's what people think.
Sure.
Yeah. That is what people.
Yeah.
So is Amazon? That's amazing. I did not know. I know that I did hear that they were hiring like 22,000 people or something like that, some ridiculous amount of numbers, and it didn't really have anything to do. They said it didn't really have anything to do with the Christmas season.
No,
so you would think that would be the reason, but it wasn't.
No, this is just they're ramping up.
Ramping up base kind of number of jobs that they need. And of course, if you drive to Capel here, you can see these monstrous warehouses that look like it would take, they must be 1 million square feet.
Absolutely.
Must be huge.
Absolutely.
So that's what they're doing, is they're staffing up those buildings that they've been building out there. So that $15 an hour is a worker who maybe fulfills orders?
Yeah. Yep, it's a good wage.
It is a good wage, right?
Yep, it's a very good wage. It's really impacted the market in the area because it's very competitive now.
Mm-hmm.
So, all employers are feeling the same thing to be more competitive, but that's not to say that everybody needs to be at that rate.
So that's a high rate so somebody might see $15 and they're making 12 and go work for Amazon, right?
That's where you see the jumping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what's it like to work for Amazon? Do you have any idea?
I don't.
You
I
don't?
don't. That's not one of our clients. I
Okay.
don't. I don't. But we have other clients, obviously, throughout the area.
Right.
But that's somebody I've not worked with.
Okay. Because I was just thinking that might not be a bad place to work.
I don't know.
Sometimes those large corporations like that, Google and Nike, and they offer nice benefits. So I have no idea either because they're not my client for benefits.
Yeah. So I have no insight.
I have no idea. But that's a very interesting thing because they're becoming this monster, almost, affecting all kinds of parts of the community.
That's true.
So just to give you a little background, so one of the businesses that I had was I had e-commerce, and it related to the topic of healthy and fit. I was selling home gym equipment, jump ropes and balls and Bosu balls and all that sort of stuff weights and all that kind of stuff that people use to work out at home. And so what happened, and this was 2012, 13, 14, kind of in that area. And what happened during that time, we were doing really well as a business. And then Amazon was starting to introduce what they call Amazon Choice. And so what they were doing was seeing the products that we sold, finding a source for them, and then undercutting our price for almost the same product. And then, of course, Amazon marketing is better than mine. So they would put their product at the top of the page, right? And this is the Amazon Choice thing. And they were putting people out of business. And I don't think they really cared, right?
Could not tell you. Could not tell you.
And I saw them do that in more than just the area that I was in. They were doing it in other areas too. So here's the other thing that you may or may not know. I had my own brand. It was called Peak Win Athletics, and the fees that you ended up paying to Amazon in terms of shipping and storing and fulfillment and all that sort of stuff was about 25% of the cost of the cost to the consumer. So if somebody bought a $20 ball from me, $5 of it went to Amazon. So that's a substantial amount that you end up paying for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's my Amazon experience. So I don't necessarily like Amazon. And I think they've become this sort of monster, this sort of big monster. So anyway, so back to staffing. So let's talk a little bit more about 20 to 40-year-old customers, because they're different nowadays. This is the millennial era.
Yeah, I think that the
Get a little closer to the mic.
There
you go.
Younger people, they're very different. Millennials are very different.
Yeah.
In some ways, well, let me just digress for a second.
Sure.
I feel that young people, because of the way they are coming up, if you will, especially with social media, using their phones 100% of the time.
Right. And not calling but texting.
Not calling but texting.
They don't call.
Correct. Their interview skills are lacking.
Oh.
Because they really don't know how to interact necessarily, face to face.
Right.
So we're seeing people just not having a lot of eye contact. They're, you say to a younger person, for example, this job is.
We're talking about a 25-year-old.
Yeah, we can talk. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Or even older.
Older,
But somebody that has always been using a phone.
Right, and that's the 20 to 35-year-old, right?
Right. So you're going to say to somebody, this job, you're going to have to navigate the computer. You're going to work with Outlook. You're going to have to be on websites and so on and so forth. Is something you can do? Absolutely, yes.
All of them can.
Yes.
Yes.
But we've had experience where you get to a situation into an office, there's a desktop, and they don't even know how to turn it on.
Right.
Because they're not used to using the computer. They're used to navigating social media and on their phones.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different. So that skill set is a learned skill set. You've got to learn how to log into a site, how to use Outlook, how to use calendars, and that is something that I think needs to be taught more so in schools, because every single job is going to have a computer situation, not a handheld,
right,
not a phone, but it's going to have either a laptop or a desktop, and you've got to learn how to navigate that computer.
Right. So, yeah, in that vein, probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago, when I lived in Georgia, a friend of mine and I went to dinner, and she said, "Can I bring my daughter?" And I said, "Of course." And so she brought her daughter, and her daughter brought her friend, so it was the two of us and daughter and friend. So we sat down to dinner, and we were talking, and I looked over, and the daughter and friend were texting, and that's all they were doing. They were not talking, and they were texting to each other.
I know, it's really strange for us, right?
It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
she's sitting right there. Why don't you just talk to her?
Exactly. But, we see, skill sets, the workplace has changed somewhat, but basic skill sets are still the same.
Yeah.
Being able to communicate, being able to speak to, like if you're on a phone and you've got to answer the phone for a company, you've got to do it professionally, and you've got to be able to transfer that multi-line phone, and you've got to be able to take notes. So you've got to be able to do all of these things.
Now, here's what's interesting in my business, health insurance business. Like when I got started, the phone was a very big part of my job. It's becoming less and less so, and guess what's working better than phones?
Texting?
Texting.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, I text all the time.
Yeah, me
to communicate.
too.
Right?
I have a couple of friends that I don't think I've ever talked to them on the phone.
Yes.
It's been texting. And in a way, I kind of like it because you don't have to respond right away. You respond if you're in the middle of something, you text back when when it's convenient.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, for me, from a business perspective, I have to identify for a client, what way do they like to communicate? Is it always by email? Do they like text? Do they like phone calls? And, you really need to understand that, how somebody likes to communicate. If somebody does not want to speak with you on the phone, if they don't tell you, you should be able to figure it out fairly quickly if they never respond to you, but always respond by text.
Right.
So that's certainly something for us to recognize.
There's your phone right now.
Excuse me, I did not turn it off.
It's all right. We say here on the podcast that mistakes are always a good part because it makes us more human.
Well, good. I'm glad.
and we realize that we are not perfect, and so our customers like that too.
Okay.
Okay, so get closer to the mic again.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm here.
There we go. See, it sounds so much better when you're close like
Okay.
that. Okay. So the other thing that I would say, besides the sort of texting that I think we've all fallen into, now there's probably the older generation probably does not like texting, or maybe so. I don't know.
Well, I think that. I think that everybody has to kind of adapt because that is something you need to do.
Sure.
I mean, there's no question about it. You just need to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I often use the microphone and you speak into my texting.
Sure.
And then I, make sure I correct all the mistakes or whatever. But again, if, personally, if you do or don't want to, that's fine. But when you're in the business arena, you just have to do what makes sense for,
Right.
those people at that time.
Yeah, in the business sense, phone calls are never going to go away.
Never.
Never. So that's some skill you do have to be able to have, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that young people, I mean, when we're talking about people, say, 22 to 35 or whatever, I really think that, the one thing I always stress is having a good, strong handshake. which is something my father taught me when I was a young girl. And it's extremely important. I mean, people are fist bumping and all that, but it's not the same. A good, strong handshake.
A handshake is required.
I think so.
Okay.
Absolutely, and especially from females.
Yeah.
And, eye contact and the handshake at the same time.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
And it speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So I think that's something.
So is that something that you might coach one of your potential people before they go for a job interview?
Yes, our recruiters are really, really good at coaching. I mean, it's interesting to see people, how they come dressed for interviews.
Right.
That's the other challenge.
Right.
Some people don't have a great, vast wardrobe.
Right.
So some young people might think that, clothes that they use to go out and to the club with is appropriate for work, and it's not necessarily. So what we're able to do is to really coach some folks is to better present themselves, just to make sure that everything is at least pressed or clean. I mean,
doesn't have to be coat and tie anymore.
Doesn't have to be. Listen,
depending on what it is, it might, huh?
I'll ask the, we can ask, the recruiters can always speak directly to the client. If it's for a different opportunity, they might say they can come in casual.
Okay.
But we certainly encourage people to dress in a business
So
manner.
you ask the employer what the dress should
might
be.
say to them what would be appropriate. Say it's a job that happens to be in the warehouse versus the front office.
Right.
Would it be appropriate for somebody to come dressed in khakis without a tie? And they'll tell you yes or no.
Sure.
And we'll communicate that to the associate.
So you make sure that you get that straight before they
I
arrive.
mean, we certainly want the associate to put their best foot forward. So that that's the goal. For us to make a match, for an associate with a customer, a client, it's the best.
Sure.
Putting people to work.
Sure.
Excellent.
So what other challenges do you face when you're trying to get employees for an employer?
Well, it's just competitive. I mean, in this area, and I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I'm not from the Dallas area, although I've been here
You've been here a while, right?
I've been here for 9 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, but the biggest thing is there's so many businesses here. I mean, it's a very, very vast area, and equally as many staffing companies. So, I mean, there's just a great opportunity for people to work here. You just have to work at getting the job.
Right.
You've got to work at it. You've got to find out where the jobs are. You have to have either reliable transportation or know what the bus lines are. And if you cannot get somewhere because you don't have reliable transportation, then really look for jobs that are within your reach. Don't accept a position so far away that you're going to go there for 1 or 2 days and then you're going to have to leave.
Because of that challenge.
Of that challenge, yeah.
Right.
That's very big too.
Yeah, Dallas-Fort Worth is obviously a place that is growing very quickly and has been for years, and I saw the other day it was one of the fastest growing in the country.
It is.
And so that sounds great, except it's also a challenge because lots of folks are hiring and it's hard to find those folks.
That is correct. And that is the biggest struggle and the biggest challenge for everybody, for all the employers. That's why they come to staffing companies.
Right.
Because we're going to present them with 3 or 4 or 5 people for a particular position. We've already vetted the people, as opposed to them seeing 100 resumes to whittle down to 3 or 4. So that's a different opportunity.
So does vetting include drug testing?
Yes, in our business, we e-verify, background check, and drug test.
Both of those?
All 3.
All 3, okay. All right, cool. So that's just part of any job now, right?
That's that's how we go to business. And then, of course, we skills test. So if somebody wants...
So you do that too? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Absolutely. So if somebody wants somebody in data entry, and they say we need somebody that has no less than 14,000 keystrokes, we'll test for that.
Okay.
Or
so what is 14,000 keystrokes?
I don't know, other than it's a lot.
Is that in an hour? Is that what that is?
I don't even know that, but I know it's a lot. I mean, the recruiters know exactly what that means. And so not only 14,000 keystrokes, but accurately, I might add.
Okay.
And then there's some clients that don't care about the speed. They just want it to be accurate.
Okay. So So since it's a challenge, so where do you find your potential employees?
Well, we certainly do the job boards, Career Builder.
Job boards.
Career
Explain
Builder.
what that is. Oh, Career Builder. Okay.
Indeed, Craigslist.
Craigslist. Okay, all those kind of
All of those.
online sort of places that
Right.
people look for jobs.
Right. And then Express Employment, we have our own website, and we're a pretty large concern anyhow, so people look on our website all the time. We post our jobs. We also look for referrals. In fact, we pay our associates money for referrals if somebody lasts, with a company. I believe it's for 60 days.
Wow, that's very cool. Mm-hmm. That's very cool. So
Because
people can make money
Referrals are
by
great.
referrals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Referrals are great.
Okay, cool.
And I'll send emails out, and I probably sent you one most recently, looking for particular people if you know anybody.
Absolutely, you did
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, please send them our way.
So you get lots of things you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, we just, all kinds of stuff
That's the stuff you have to do.
to make it work. Yeah, definitely.
So is it not hard to find employers because they're always looking for folks, or is that another challenge?
No, that's another challenge too, because again, there's so many staffing companies, but so many companies, and this is the change that I've noticed. When I first started at Express, I would say that the bigger change is that many companies have now really grown their internal capabilities of hiring. So maybe so many years ago, they were using external resources like ours
Right.
a little bit more. Now they've turned more inward they have
to
got,
their own staff.
right, to
So
hire.
at a certain size, like Amazon may not ever use anybody outside,
No,
right?
I believe
You
they
think
do.
they do?
I believe
Okay.
they do, but it's funny. You've heard me say it. I'll say it again. From the suite to the street. So, if you're looking for higher level positions, some companies will definitely engage people outside to
Right.
find those people.
Yeah. Even universities, I mean, even huge organizations
Right.
use outside help
Outside
because
resources.
it seems like a better way to do it.
Well, it just complements them at
Yeah.
the same time. They're doing the same thing, but we could possibly identify people they haven't sourced.
So they may double do it.
Yes,
Okay.
and we have many clients that do that. They're
Okay.
sourcing simultaneously.
And you're aware of that.
We're
and-
aware of that up front.
And it's fun.
You got to ask that question.
Right.
You just have to ask
Right.
that question so you know what kind of resources are out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it possible you turn up the same person?
Yes, that's happened. They'll
Okay.
say, this person was presented to us a week ago.
Oh, and then you don't get paid.
Well, and whether they've accepted them or not, that's another story. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's great communication back and forth, so we're all communicating all the time.
Okay.
But
So you get paid by the employer.
yes,
Yes, the employee doesn't
Correct.
ever have to pay anything
No,
to
not
get,
at all.
to get hired. And that's the way it's always been, right?
it's always been with us. Yes, I mean, there's some companies that do it differently. I think I don't know about, but our company, we've always done it that way.
So what about things like helping employees with resumes and things
We
like
do
that?
that too.
You do that
Yep,
too?
we do that
So
too.
you do lots of stuff for these folks to get them hired.
We do. I mean, that's the biggest part of Express is putting people to work. I mean, we are looking to put a million people to work in a year, not nationwide naturally.
Right.
We've got over 800 offices nationwide, a very big presence in Canada as well.
Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where it got started?
No, it was started in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the corporate office is in Oklahoma City.
So how many offices are there here in DFW?
16 offices here in the Metroplex.
Wow.
For just Express, yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And then you said there's lots of competition in that arena.
There is. It's I mean, there's the big boys. There's
So who are the big boys?
that would be a Kelly,
Okay.
Staff Force.
Everybody knows that. Right.
The ones that you've heard
Sure.
always, and of course Express is within the top 5 as well. But then you've got what we call boutique companies,
Mm-hmm.
staffing companies, that they are very specialized or very small. Maybe they only have one person who finds the company in places.
Mm-hmm.
So they're called boutique.
So, and I had a friend when I lived in Austin. I lived in Austin most of my life, and she was a boutique. She found, and she specialized, I believe, in just CPAs.
That could be.
I think that's all she did. And they were in higher level, very, very high level positions. And that's all she did. And it was kind of one at a time.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So I think do those people still exist? She doesn't do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a niche.
Yeah.
If you are working in a particular niche and the word gets around and they'll say if you need an accounting person, you should really talk with this lady or man, they really know what they're doing. They've always, so there's a lot of word of mouth.
Sure.
That works as well. And
I think she also worked for engineering firms too.
That could be.
And so I think those are her two specialties.
Yeah, they're very specialized. So the more you know about particular industries, then you can kind of, the nuances and the type of person that will be better.
Yeah. So now the only other thing I want to talk about again is sort of like we talked a little bit about sort of the challenges over 40 and that the myth is that you can't get hired when you're over 40 or 50, but that's just not the case at all. And that that a lot of people like that range of people because I'm afraid to say it, but they might be more reliable.
That would be correct. We've had employers say, I just want them to show up every day and give me a full day's work.
And sometimes over 40 and 50 have a different work ethic.
Absolutely. I mean, a different work ethic for sure. Like my daughter, for example, she has a great work ethic because she had two parents that had a great work ethic.
Because you beat it into her.
Yeah, so she knows, the good work ethic. But I think that, again, going back to what we started to speak about when we first started talking, is employers, listen, they cannot stop and wait. Their business is going on every single day.
Sure.
So when they're in a crunch and they need somebody now, they need somebody now.
And they need somebody who can hit the ground running, as you said.
So, for example, if you're an HR person, you may not work in a particular industry, but your HR processes are going to be the same, so that it's very transferable. Same with accounting. Those are very transferable. The skill sets are the same. The only difference is the company. So that is what is so good about people. And I always say that about salespeople. Selling is selling is selling. The only thing that changes is the product.
Yeah.
Now, if it's extremely technical, that's a big learning curve. So
Sure.
Those companies that contact us for those technical jobs, they are looking for people with the technical skills.
Right.
Do not send me a salesperson that doesn't know what they need to know.
That product.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, but that's why people that are more senior, more seasoned, very, very valuable. And we will get a really great resume of somebody, and because all of us know many companies throughout the years, if you will, we're able to contact a company and say, listen, this person just came across my desk. I think it's somebody you might be interested in from our conversations previously. Present the information, and fairly regularly they'll say, you know what, I could use this person. I'd love to speak with them.
Right. So, and we earlier said that person might or might not be looking for a career. They might be contracted for a year or two.
That's right.
Because that company may then want to get them to get that part of the company operating up and running, and then they may not have a job after that.
That's right, but you usually know that up front. Those are contract positions. Yeah.
Okay.
So somebody might be starting up a new company, and they need an HR professional to come in right now and hire all their staff.
And get it all going.
And then they're gone.
Right.
Then they're hiring the HR professional that's going to work for the company. So there's HR staffing companies that do just exactly that. That's their function.
Right.
So well, first of all, it's very, very interesting to me. When I speak to any employer, we only talk about the most qualified person for the job. I never talk about gender, age. No.
None of that.
That's.
So when does that come up? Is that subject? Is that not cool to say that?
Well, I would not bring it up, but it comes up from the employer.
Okay.
Sometimes. So
How
the employer,
old? What? Yeah.
The employer might say something like, we really,
Is that a sensitive subject?
Yes, because it's certainly a very discriminating comment.
It is.
So if somebody says, and this is interesting. I've had customers say, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but
Right.
I don't want anybody with small children.
Right.
I don't want to have people calling off because their kids are sick.
Right.
And so my response to that is, so you need somebody that's reliable, that's going to show up each day.
You don't
even comment on it.
on that, right?
Because those are the things that
So that's discriminatory.
very discriminatory.
Right.
Or you'll have somebody say, I don't want, I need somebody young that can do X, Y, or Z, and
What do they mean by that?
maybe,
You're reading between the lines.
Maybe it's a warehouse job, and there's going to be
So they want somebody
Right.
physically able.
it's not going to, but so the way I would respond to that is then you need somebody that's going to be able to lift, 35 pounds,
right.
and they'll confirm that.
So you've learned to interpret from what they say what the qualifications are of that person.
Well, we always present the most qualified person because we are not going to, we're going to be able to say to somebody, can you lift 50 pounds? And the person's going to say, no, I can't. Well,
right.
then that won't be somebody we could present.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Sure.
So
yeah. So at what? Here's I'm going to get into this. Is at what age does a person really have a challenge getting a job?
you know what? That's so hard for me to answer because I've seen people placed in their early 60s. Because they're great at what they do, they
Sure.
love to do it. So I really,
Have you ever placed anybody who's 65 or 70?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But I know that we've got people that age working.
Working, right.
And again, if you're a customer service person or you're an accountant or a
Sure.
receptionist,
Why should that make a difference?
yeah, most
Right.
customers just want the person to be a good employee to show up each day and do a great job.
Sure.
I mean, that really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Sure. So, one of the questions I have is, what is your favorite failure?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. My favorite failure
Yes. In the business.
in the business. Well, I was hoping it was in
Yeah.
the business. I'd really have to think about that. Probably it's losing a client based on an employee performance versus something we did or did not do correctly.
Okay.
I mean, it's a people business. So I think that is the thing that strikes me is when it takes you a very long time to get a customer, right?
Sure.
In anything.
You mean a client who's going to
client.
hire employees.
Yes.
And then you keep that customer for a while, right?
You do.
As long as you provide the right people for them.
And then when something happens and the employee who we have vetted and the whole bit
doesn't pan out.
doesn't pan out and you lose the client, that's a big
That's
it's a big one.
devastating, right?
You never really get over it.
Yeah.
Because we are really it just depends, but that to me is probably the biggest disappointment when that happens.
And that doesn't happen often, or does it?
It doesn't happen often, but
Right.
when it happens, customers can be very forgiving because they know all the challenges we're facing too.
Right.
But then, at some point it's like, you know what, I gave you a shot, didn't work out,
Didn't
I'm
work.
moving on.
Right.
And we've gotten clients that way as well, because
From somebody else that-
they've experienced it too.
Sure.
So the one thing that the biggest game changer, I think, for any company, and ours included, are the people that make up the company. How well are we vetting? How well are we interviewing? How well are we placing? So that's an extremely important part of what we do.
So what bad recommendations have you heard in your industry that you would like to counter?
Well, if you are a temp company, we don't work with anybody that places temps. I hear that all the time. And then I always have to say, well, we're a staffing company. And they're like, well, what's the difference? But I think that being a temporary...
Is there a difference?
I think that
Do you do all?
we do it all.
Okay.
But I think that when people hear the word temps, they're thinking not necessarily good people, just people that were throwing out there to place. There are some companies that are called, they're day labor companies.
Right.
And they do place people for the day.
And that's their specialty.
That's their specialty, but some companies think that all staffing companies are equal, and that would not be correct.
Okay.
They're not all equal.
They're not all equal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say that, we're pretty good at what we do, and we take a lot of pride in what we do.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that we are understanding the customer from their perspective so we can place the best person for them.
Sure. So now I want to ask you how folks can get hold of you and all your sort of ways they want to get hold of you. How do they do that?
Well, again, my name is Penny Gilden-Yunker.
Yes.
And
Gilden-Yunker.
Gilden-Yunker.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful. I've always said that. My husband's name was Yunker, and my name is Gilden.
Gilden, so it's Gilden dash Yunker, Yunker.
Yes, and just a quick story. When I was younger, I remember that my sister came home from school one day, and she said to my father, she said, "Daddy, a friend of mine, his mother." And my father said, "Well, what's her name?" And my sister said, "Mrs. Friedman." And my father said, "Well, what's her maiden name?" My sister said, "I don't know." And that always stayed with me. That if I went without my maiden name, nobody would remember me.
So that's the reason, right?
That is the reason.
And that is true.
Well,
that is
plus,
true.
I worked for Coca-Cola, and for many years I was Penny Gilden before I got married. So I certainly didn't want to lose that either. So that's why it's Penny Gilden-Yunker, which is a mouthful.
Right.
So you can reach me at 972-258-4981 and ask for Penny.
Say it again.
972-258-4981.
Okay, so is there a website or an email?
Well, my email is extremely long.
Okay.
So it's penny.gilden, Gilden -Yunker, Yunker, at expresspros with an S.com.
PROS.com. Okay.
So
website, is that a good way to get hold of you?
You can do it that way as well.
Because that seemed like that might be an easier way than to remember your email, although I'm going to have you repeat it.
Okay. Penny.Gilden-Yunker at expresspros.com.
Okay.
And the website would be www.expresspros.com. And when you get to the website, you look for either Irving, Texas, or Farmers Branch, Texas.
Okay.
And that would be our website.
Okay, so
locally.
Express Pros is the whole company.
Is the whole company.
Okay.
And then you can look at any Express office in the Metroplex if you needed to, and just would be able to put in, Dallas or Fort Worth or whatever, and that would come up.
Cool. Very cool. So, Penny, thank you so much. This has been
my pleasure.
Such fun. And so we learned a lot about how to get hired and how not to get hired and all those things. So thank you very much. This is W Tucker with the W Tucker Show. Yes, I know it used to be Healthy and Fit After 40, but it isn't any longer. It's the W Tucker Show. So thanks. All right. Thank you very much.
How was that?
That was fantastic.
Was it? Or did you say that to everybody naturally?
It was great.